Chris, another question that my wife just so eloquently said. What was it again? Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Will Paterson, and welcome back to a new video. I know what you're all thinking. This is pretty crazy. I am with Chris Doe from the channel on YouTube called The Future. Well, if you don't know how I actually got to meet Chris Doe and the Future team, I went to LA for Adobe Max. Adobe actually flew me out to LA to go and attend this, to take some video and to just see how awesome it was, and it was really cool. If you haven't seen those videos, they're in my YouTube channel from the last couple videos. But as you know, if you fly from England to the furthest corner of America in Los Angeles, and if you know someone like Chris Doe, you need to do a video with them. So we decided to do a collaborative video. So there's one on my channel, there's going to be one on his channel as well. I have specifically asked him some questions that I think you guys will really benefit from, because what I see is that Chris Doe is like a studio genius. He knows how business runs, and he works in LA, of all places in the world. It must be really hard to run your business in LA, and I'm from a town of less than 10,000 people. So I wanted his advice for me and my job. His wealth of knowledge in design is great, his wealth of knowledge in business, and he just speaks so well as well. And also, just a little disclaimer, I was suffering pretty badly with jet lag in this video, so you can see me going a bit crazy, and there's a few bloopers that I think you'll enjoy. But guys, without any further ado, here's the video. Roll it. Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Will Paterson, and Chris Doe.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Don't freak out. No, it's okay, you can freak out, don't worry. Chris Doe, we're here at Adobe Max. I don't know if these guys, the Future, knew that I was coming out here, but I knew I'd see them, and we tracked them down. And they just tracked me down because I'm elusive like that.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, are you enjoying it here at Max?
I love it here, man. I love here, but you know what I love? I love running into people like you so that these kind of collaborations can happen. We meet somewhere, not in the middle, but kind of, you know?
Yeah,
and it's great. We got to take opportunities like this to make some content together. And that's what we're going to do. So, Will, what do you have planned for us?
Awesome. So, guys, if you don't know, I'm a small town guy in the sense of I actually live in a small town. Like literally? Literally. The facts are this. There are 14,000 people at Adobe Max, and there's only 10,000 people in my town that live in my town. So what I wanted to talk about is the differences between my job and the Future's or Chris Doe's job. Yep. Like in the sense of scale, because obviously I have a kind of like a city job in a small town. Mm-hmm. You guys have got like a big job in a big town, like, you know, it's huge. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna ask him some questions. Great. What is the biggest challenge? Very generic question, but what is the biggest challenge that you've set so far for yourself here? Like not what you've overcome, but what is the biggest challenge that you've set for yourself here in LA?
Oh, wow. Are you talking about like at the beginning of my career or?
No, right now. So like,
right now, okay.
Because like, obviously you're so successful. Yeah. Like here. Okay. What is your biggest challenge?
Okay, so our biggest challenge right now is we're shifting away from doing client service work and moving towards content creation, is to be able to sustain ourselves, the company that we have, the high real estate prices that we're paying, while making content for people like you. So this is the passive income business model at its finest, and so we have a lot of challenges. So I'm gonna just drop some real numbers for your fans who may not know of us. 4 years ago, we started The Future. It was originally called The School, and the first year of doing business, we did $17,000 in sales, like $17,000. This year, 4 years later, we're gonna do somewhere north of $1.6 million. But that is not enough. Now, for some of you guys who are freaking out, $1.6 million seems like it's a fantastic amount of money. But for us, with the size of the team that we have, with the big city salaries and the rental prices that we have to pay, that's not gonna cut it. So we're gonna run at a deficit for a little while. So the challenge is to make it into 2019 and successfully transition from being a service company to being a content company.
Wow, that's like insane. You're so eloquent, Chris. Like
Thank you.
This is the thing, no jump cuts needed for Chris. Like for me, it's ding, 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 ding.
I thought you do that for like drama. Like,
Chris, another question that my wife just so eloquently said. What was it again? Another question, Chris, is I get all my clients, because I'm in the town, online. Yeah. So obviously international, working with people around the world, they contact me first on email, like goes through my wife who does all the admin stuff. Is it the same for you, or do you get like a lot of work in LA? What kind of clients do you get and how do you get them?
That's a great question. So most people make the assumption that in order to get a big budget project with a big name client that you're going to meet them in person. But the reality is big clients are really busy. Okay, so what they want to do is to get some level of comfort, and all of that magic happens on a conference call. This is why I emphasize learning how to communicate ideas clearly, to be able to talk about budgets early, because believe it or not, that actually creates a sense of confidence from the client that you actually know what you're doing. So we have the office, and I can say that very rarely does anybody ever visit us. So this is really a mindset thing more so than it is a location thing.
No, I'm just loving this. Like, I don't know if you guys have been preached at right now, but I'm feeling it. So I'm in a small town.
Yeah.
What would you do differently if you weren't in LA? If you lived in a small town of 10,000 people, like me and like many others that watch this, what would you like personally do differently? Or is there anything like extreme? What would you do?
That's a great question. Can I assume that you have fast internet connection in this small town? You do, right? Yeah, okay. Are you being serious? Yeah, okay. So really all you need to be able to connect it to the international client base and the world in general is a fast internet connection. We know that you have a good camera, you know how to produce things. So in terms of appearances, anybody that's reaching out to you online can't differentiate between you and anybody else. They don't know where you're from, how old you are, how big your team is, and that's the beauty of being a graphic designer, is that you can create brands that seem a lot more expensive and more polished than you really are. You do this all the time for your clients, right? Yeah. There's an upstart small challenger brand and they want to feel as big as their competitor. So you help them articulate that in visual format with design, with lettering, logos, typography. Yeah. You could do that for yourself. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily do anything different. I'm not going to necessarily hide where I'm from, but I'm going to put out the most professional image that I can with a great body of work, and it'll be very difficult for people to tell the difference.
That's so insightful. Like, another question that I'll actually give you to do with this is obviously the pricing model. Yes. Because like you guys are a huge company at the future, like, and blind and everything. You've got products and everything. Yep. It's insane what you're doing. Now, for someone, like we talked about this just beforehand, like before we got on cam and stuff, but some people find it difficult to justify charging high prices. So I said before, city prices for, city work, which is basically doing really good work and getting the same pay as someone who's living in a different location. It's not based on your postcode or your zip code, what you get paid. Is that something that you agree with? Would you agree to tell people like me in my situation that, yeah, you should value your work to a good number, maybe not the millions of dollars that you guys may be doing, but even if you can't justify it with a building or overheads and stuff, how would you justify us to charge even greater prices, higher prices?
So this is a common misconception that value and price is based on how you feel about it. Now, here's the model that I share with some people, right? So when you buy a can of soda like Coca-Cola and you buy it at a big box store where they sell you a 48 pack, the price per can is very low. It's probably less than 25 cents per can, right? Now, if you go to a vending machine, let's say you're at the beach, that same can of Coke, literally the same can of Coke rolls out, and now you're gonna pay $1.55 or $1.75 for the same can of Coke. Now you think, what's the difference between those two? And let me add one more example in here, in that if you go to movie theater, I don't know how it is in the UK.
Oh yeah.
It's very, very expensive. That same amount of Coke is now going to be $5, $6. And you're thinking, what is the difference? Mostly because I have a different sense of urgency and need depending on where I am at that time. So the mistake that Coca-Cola doesn't make is they charge one flat price for all customers at the same time at the same location. Now, somebody coming to you who wants a logo, let's say you charge $1,000 to do the logo. Yeah. But if they need it urgently, if they're in a rush, then they need it more than the next person, right? So then you can determine the price with them, and it's not a set price. So the mistake that people make a lot about pricing is they base it on what they have. So they think, well, I'm only one person, or I work in a small town or small studio, my cost of living is small. So all of that is about framing the pricing around you and not the client.
Right.
So this is what Blair Enns talks about quite a bit in his book, Win Without Pitching Manifesto, and other books like that. He said that pricing and value, just like beauty and fairness, is in the eye of the beholder. Yep. So what you want to do is have a conversation with your client, determine what the urgency is, what big problem they're trying to solve, and then have them start to understand the value of what they're asking you to do.
So that's really cool. You've got that mindset about that. Now, especially in the UK, I'm not sure what it's like in America. As you said, you charging that model, it's all about necessity.
Yep.
And like, I guess ease of use, like, getting
right.
it easier, If you got any sort of advice, because obviously I could like spurt out a load of stuff that I think of, but from a studio perspective, someone who lives in a small town, someone like me, have you got any advice on how to make yourself into sort of like a studio, kind of like the future in a small town? If someone's out there who doesn't want to be freelance but wants to has even greater ambitions to create a studio as good as like the future and the blind and everything, what advice would you give to them?
Okay, this is something that I talk about quite a bit, which is if you look at a studio you admire, break it down. How do they present themselves? What's the language? What's the tone? Do they present who's behind the studio? Do they show you a map? What do they do? And a lot of these studios really just lead with the work, and they present themselves with language that encapsulates their brand philosophy, and the benefit that they make or they provide to the user or the customer. Start to understand that and break down that formula and reverse engineer it for yourself. It's a fantastic way to learn. If you think about the way that artists used to learn in apprenticeships with masters, is they would do what? They would copy the master's work. And then they would do the underpainting, and eventually they would then be able to do their own painting and they become an artist themselves. So we've lost a little bit of that in the digital age, but you can do the same thing. I teach my students to deconstruct the work or the presence of other studios and break that down and start to emulate that. It's actually a lot easier than you think.
I'm going to end it here in a second, but like the way that you speak is really eloquent. One question for me, how do you do that?
Lots and lots of practice. I have to admit, most of my life I grew up as an introvert. I was afraid even to open my mouth. One way that you can do is you can think of yourself as a superhero character. Like one of my favorite characters is Mimic from the X-Men. He has the ability to copy other people's characters. So think of yourself as Mimic and hang around with people that you admire, the people who are very articulate and who speak well, who talk about design the way that you aspire, and long before short, or short before long, or whatever that term is, you will start to speak that language. Now, I don't know about you, Will, but whenever I hang around with fine artists, like I'm in a fine art class and they're critiquing the work, you notice they have all the same language. They start talking about juxtaposition and tectonics and process and formal qualities of a painting. That's what happens. So what I would do is, if you're in a small town and you can't find that, make a trip, go to a convention, something like this, and you pay attention to how speakers talk about their work, how they tell their story. Like Brian Collins is a master at telling the story of his process, so definitely check him out.
No way, guys, that's awesome. That last question, I like that one. That one was like sick, because my sort of talking style, hardly anyone understands it. Thank you so much, Chris, for being like on the channel. Go to it, the future. The link's down below in the description. Go and subscribe. Literally some insane stuff. You guys, how often do you guys upload?
Like sometimes twice a day now.
Now that's unreal. I can't believe that. I need to up my game. You know what I mean? Can we have like people to do this for me too? No, it's okay. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you soon. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please press that red subscribe button and comment down below to let me know if you want more videos of me and Chris. And make sure you subscribe to the future as well. And I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, FreshBooks. Now, if you're a self-employed designer like myself, and maybe you work in Britain or in America or in Europe, you need an accounting service that can allow you to easily send invoices, to gather expenses, and to also see when you're getting paid. Well, I use FreshBooks. It's an online accounting service that I use to gather up all my invoices, to send invoices, to gather my expenses, to start projects, do proposals, and to get paid even quicker. The best thing about FreshBooks, like I always say, is that when you send an invoice to a client, you can see when they have seen that invoice. So there is no confusion as to whether they have actually received that invoice. And you can also get paid even quicker by the button at the top right hand corner of the invoice that you send to them. It allows them to pay it directly through it via Stripe. For more information about FreshBooks and to get 30 days for completely free, risk-free trial of FreshBooks, click that link down below in the description. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon. Goodbye.